Hello, my name is John Bateman, and I defend drivers who have been accused of DUI in Greenville, South Carolina. You can find me online at DUIGreenville.com or give me a call at 844-DUI-ALLY. In my previous video, I introduced the walk and turn portion of the standardized field sobriety test battery. Today, I'm going to talk about some problems drivers have when they're executing the test and some problems that officers have in interpreting the results. Remember from the last video, there's two stages to the walk and turn. The first stage is that instruction stage, and the driver is standing in that heel-toe stance with their arms by their side while they're getting the instructions, okay? And remember, there's two clues in this stage. Clue one is if the driver begins the test before being instructed to do so. And clue two is if the driver falls off the line, breaking that heel-toe stance, loses their balance. Sometimes during the instructions phase, the officer might take a little more time than usual explaining the instructions. Meanwhile, the driver is in this very awkward heel-toe stance. So while the instructions are going on, the driver will simply get a little more comfortable. That doesn't mean the driver's impaired. It doesn't mean the driver has a problem with their balance. But it just means they're getting more comfortable. The officer, though, a lot of times is going to interpret that as a clue that the driver is impaired. And you only need 2 out of the 8 clues, you remember from the last video. Now, starting the test too soon. You're not supposed to start the test before being instructed to do so. But some drivers are eager to prove that they're not impaired, so they might go ahead and start. Recall that the officer is supposed to inform the driver not to start the test until being instructed to do so, but the officer never tells the driver if you start too soon, it's going to be a clue that you're impaired. Recall from my last video that during the walking stage, there are a total of 6 clues that the officer is looking for. One of those clues is for the driver to miss a heel-toe step. A lot of times the officer will tell the driver to strike their heel onto their toe as they're making those heel-toe steps. However, according to the manuals that the officers are trained on, the heel only has to fall within a ½ inch of the toe. There's no requirement that you hear the heel clicking onto the toe for it to be a valid step. Another clue during the walking stage is if the driver steps off the line. Now, according to the instruction manual for administering the walk and turn, the driver has to step completely off of the line. In our videos, we're using some blue painter's tape to represent the line. However, often on the roadside, there might not be a line available, so the officer has the driver perform the walk and turn on an imaginary line. The problem is, how can the officer know how wide this line is that the driver's imagining? How can the officer know whether the driver stepped off the line or not? And even if there is a line present, sometimes the officers will count it as a clue if the driver steps partially off the line. Some drivers may want to go above and beyond on the walk and turn. The thought being that if the officer is asking them to do one thing, they'll go one step further, do something a little more elaborate or a little more difficult, and impress the officer that they are a sober driver. However, they need to understand that unless they perform the test exactly as instructed, the officer is going to interpret anything outside of those instructions that they do as a sign of impairment. My name is John Bateman. I defend drivers who have been accused of DUI in Greenville, South Carolina. You can find me online at DUIGreenville.com or give me a call at 844-DUI-ALLY.